is such a central point in Jewish life, with Shabbat every week and Yom Tov every few months, and then we have these simchas and everyday eating. There's just lots of food. I so enjoy this conversation with Lily Aronin, who's a holistic integrative nutritionist and a certified weight loss coach and a healthy chef. Lily is a guiding voice in cultivating healthy eating habits, and she believes that to truly establish these habits, we must address the mind, the environment, and the spiritual aspects of eating. In this conversation, we spoke about food and its role in our lives for nourishment, for celebration, for connection, for an experience. And Lily shared practical tips and mind shifts that can empower us to strengthen eating habits, not just for ourselves, but for our families and our guests as well. It starts with knowing ourselves, our families, our guests, and tuning into their needs and preferences, and preparing the food and table with that in mind. How much to prepare, the size of the plates and glasses, is it better to serve family style or buffet, and how to plan desserts so everyone feels comfortable with how much or how little they choose to eat. Lily offered invaluable wisdom, practical tips, and mind shifts to enhance our relationship with food and our eating experiences. And she's starting a new program soon, so listen to the end to hear more about that. Here's to new habits around food. Lily, I'm so excited to be talking to you. We want to eat well, and then upcoming is Pesach, and then afterwards is every week we have Shabbat, and there's eating every time. So that whole balance of when to eat, what to eat. Let's just talk it out because that's what you do. That's what your specialty is. So let's talk.
So for me, my feeling is I'm always thinking about the person sitting in front of me, the woman sitting in front of me, the mother sitting in front of me who put so much effort into the food preparation for Shabbat and for Chagim, and leaves feeling like she overate, leaves feeling, lives feeling with guilt or shame or frustration that she's not meeting her own ideals or her own goals or her own values for herself, and wants things to be better for her kids, but also wants to treat them and wants to put all this effort in and host guests and is exhausted and resentment and this whole kind of soup of conflict around something that's supposed to be a blessing, that's supposed to make our whole week better. And I wanted to flip the script and really think about, these women who are just like me, who sit across from me, who have these deep conflicts around food on the holidays, on how much they're cooking and how much food is on the table, and they don't want to feel deprived. They put all this effort in, and they don't want to just eat one course. They don't want to just eat one plate of food. They don't want to just eat, a few bites. They want to feel like they got to enjoy, like everybody else who they prepared the food for. And at the same time, they want to wear beautiful Shabbat clothes that fit them at the first day of Chag, and the same outfit fit on the last day of Chag, right? Isn't that the dream? You're not wearing the elastic waistband on the last day of Chag and like the poofy dress because everything else doesn't fit anymore. And they want to feel good, and they want to feel like they're being a good example for their daughters and for, so this was really a huge point for me. And a point of faith for me is that taking care of the body is a divine responsibility. Your body is just the most incredible miracle. And food is just such a place of gratitude and appreciation for God. He did not have to make so many different vegetables in so many different colors, in so many different flavors, and so many different kinds of protein, and so many different kinds of fruits and carbohydrate. He didn't have to make such a plethora of food. It's really for us to enjoy, with the line of enjoy responsibly while you're taking care of this body that you're going to live your life in. And so to me, if you don't talk about Shabbat and holidays, and when people go on diets, and they're going on diets, created for the secular world, it's always like, okay, well, Shabbat is my cheat day. That's not how it's supposed to work. Shabbat's supposed to be your battery pack for the whole week. How could it be your cheat day? Or my cheat
It's
meal?
also once a week. So like a cheat day once a week is.
And it's not really once a week, because there's the Friday night, there's the pre-Shabbos potato kugel, there's the Shabbos morning kiddush, then there's the post-nap rugelach, and then there's, malav mamalka, and then if you have a wedding during the week and a bar mitzvah, like really, like we live like amazingly blessed lives, thank God. So there has to be another way to look at things. There has to be another mindset and another way to look at it. And so that's what I do. is I take my clients, whether it's in a group in my Thrive Well Shabbat blueprint, where we go through all the Jewish holidays of the year, and how to go about handling them. And also for Shabbat, how to have a Shabbat that's nourishing and fulfilling and satisfying, and where you make beautiful food and you feel for the first time like you have self-control, and you also feel abundant. You don't feel like your self-control is self-denial. You feel like self-control is from your values, that you're aligned with the choices you're making. And so to do that, we have to work on the mind, and we have to work on the environment, and we also have to work on the spiritual side.
Wow. So it's not just about restraining ourselves from eating that piece of cake and then looking at it the whole time while everyone else is eating cake and me not eating cake and me just sipping my water, okay, with lemons that has some flavor. It's
Right.
much more
Exactly.
than like what I'm understanding is we are trying to work away from that resentment or that restraint that I almost don't want to be here because it's so hard to be here.
Exactly. We want to be in the opposite. We want to say there's nowhere else I'd rather be than sitting at that table for 3 hours. Like, and that's not how we feel. We're like, I want to get up from the table already because I want to stop eating. Okay. And we want to flip the script on that. So I like to say the first thing is to know who you are and know where you are in your journey and who you are. There are some people who food doesn't speak to them. Food is not their vice. Okay. Food is not where they put their emotions. It's shopping. It's, you know, clothes. It's who knows what. Okay. But it's not food. So you got to know, am I that person? I'm probably not that person if I'm listening to this and I'm interested. Okay. I love food. If I'm going to sit at the table, like the food is going to speak to me. And so the first thing that you want to do is look at your environment and how your environment is set up. We are all impulsive people, and impulsivity never serves us, but spontaneity does. Impulsivity is, oh, cookie, yum.
Right.
Spontaneity is, oh my gosh, I was out with my friend and she told me about the most incredible bakery in all of Miami. And we went together, and together we got the most decadent and amazing cookie ever. And we split it and enjoyed the heck out of it with a coffee. That's spontaneity. I don't have to like be off cookies, but the random cookie that my kid left on the counter, or even the random cookies that I made for Shabbos that I'm overbaked and maybe baked 3 dozen cookies when really we're like a family of 7 or family of 10. Like we don't need 3 dozen cookies, especially when there's other sweets and treats and things happening. And so then every time you walk by or you make a tea or you go to the coffee or you walk to put something away in the fridge, oh, cookie, impulsivity, cookie.
Okay, I
And so
hear that
as
difference. Okay. So I hear that difference, impulsive and spontaneity. But spontaneity, what I'm also hearing is that it's more of an experience, like turn it into like not take food away from the experience that food could be. Like especially, I'm personally, I enjoy tasting food that I've never tasted before. That's where I get all brave. I'm not skydiving, but I will taste any kind of food. To me, that's part of the experience of living. So I see that more in the spontaneity. If I'm walking by and I see something
exactly.
unusual, but to have that cookie, that pashkas cookie that tastes the same and margarine based and tastes the same as I always like, that would be impulsivity. Just
You
take me.
don't have room for both in a healthy body. There just isn't. You have to be honest. The same way, like you just have to be honest. There's not room for both. There's not room for a brownie or 2 squares of chocolate every single night and going out to date night and having that tiramisu that you split with your husband from the best restaurant, or that slice of pizza fresh, hot with your kids celebrating their report card. It's a completely different experience than the cold third piece, second piece, first piece that you ate at home because you didn't have time or weren't prepared to eat something better.
Okay. So
And
impulsivity,
so when we
spontaneity. So it's, I think this is simple awareness, but it's so, yeah. Go.
exactly what you're saying. Once you make that switch of food is there to be experiential and abundant and amazing and miraculous, and if this is not any of those things, its only job better be to nourish me. There are times like this week between Purim and Pesach, I'm eating a lot of like chopped peppers, baby carrots, mini cucumbers, and cherry tomatoes. Like now, when they're all on a plate together, you can marvel at the color and whatever. I'm not making a lot of fancy salads this week. I'm making sure the food is nourishing. But you know what? If I'm going to have that hard boiled egg, I'm going to make sure I put some of that everything but the bagel spice on it. And it's going to just add that like little bit of wow factor. but and then if I want to go out to eat, I'm going to make sure that like my other meals are nourishing me and they taste good, but nourishment first, and they look pretty and they taste good. But very often it's also just about putting things on a plate makes all the difference. Eating those vegetables randomly, like from containers all over the kitchen, or just peeling it, it makes a whole difference to put it on a plate. 3 different colors of vegetables and 2 hard-boiled eggs and everything but the bagel spice and maybe some feta cheese and a little dressing. Like all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this is like, I appreciate this. And I think it's been something that as a mom of 5 kids, after kid number 3, when I had 3 young children who are, 2.5 years apart and then a year and a half and apart, and 2 years apart and then a year and a half apart, I realized that I had to start changing the dynamic in the house of putting out a vegetable plate and a fruit plate for the kids and for myself every afternoon. So now you're talking about they're 19 and 18 and 16 and 14, but like they come home and they're like, there's no fruit and like if there's no fruit and vegetables out, they like are in the fridge or in the pan. Like, look, they're like, what do you mean? And very often now they'll help me prepare those things, but it took time. It took time. And it's something that really changed their mindset, because they always thought when their friends would come over, the friends are always going to want Doritos and the friends are always going to want gummy bears. And I do have those things in my house. I don't believe in having a house without any treats.
Right.
I think it's actually very important that you know that time and place. But when I have Doritos, I'm going to be like, okay, they've already had fruits and vegetables and they've played games and they've been outside. Now I can send them outside with a bag of Doritos for 7, 8 kids. They're all going to have some. It doesn't need to be a bag of Doritos, like, fun family size for 2 children, and so it should be an experience for them, part of having this whole fun, experience. And I try to also help them separate between playing and eating. When we're eating, we're eating. When we're playing. Even playing board games or things on Shabbat afternoon. Don't put the snacks on the table with the games. Put the snacks in the kitchen, away from the games. If somebody wants a snack, the plates, everything is away. You go, you eat your snack, you come back to the game. And it just stops the habit of mindless eating in front of screens, in front of the TV, in front of the board games. And it's something that takes time. But the more that you use a buffet, especially for desserts, especially for if you're having a lot of guests all at one time, and then people are constantly passing the food and you end up eating what sits in front of you. And a lot of guests, you're going to sit at the table for hours. It's a totally different experience to sit at a table with no food on it or with just water on it and have a gorgeously set up buffet where people who want seconds get up and get seconds. But I can't tell you how many guests say, thank you so much. I leave your house and there always is amazing food. And you want to make potato kugel, make potato kugel. But if it's not at arm's reach and you have to get up to go get a second slice, and next to it is roasted vegetables and chicken and meatballs and cauliflower rice and broccoli and a cabbage salad. And there's also potato kugel. Like, you might not just take potato kugel when you go for seconds. You might take a bunch of vegetables too. And then you might be done.
Okay.
And so it's a just mindset.
What I'm hearing was that eating should be an experience. It doesn't have to be like an experience or something like unusual, but it shouldn't be done like mindless, like next to the game or like while you're reading, just reading and eating a bag of chips, or even eating a bowl of blueberries. It's reading is the experience and eating is the experience. And so I love how you suggesting keep the games separate from the food and just decide that you don't want the crumbs in the games or the fruit, even the fruit
Exactly.
smashed into the game. But that's like just on the side point. It's about the food and the game that each have its fullness of its experience. And it's so
Yes.
simple. And I also love that tip of buffet. When you're having 70 people buffet and the room is not big enough, becomes not logistically impossible. But the concept of it, if it's possible.
And if it's not possible, then to get like a few lazy Susans on the table and do 2 sections of the table where things are, okay, is also very helpful, where it's not like one thing in front of, like, you can turn it. You're also not passing then a million things back and forth. It's very, very helpful. It's one of the things when I redesigned my kitchen, like we had a Purim, it's 6 different families for Purim at my house. And I have a buffet set up, like when I designed my kitchen, that my kitchen counter is like don't have chair, like they're set as a buffet. Because I knew that that's super important and we love to host. And it's something that I've just learned makes hosting so much easier. Um, Also, you just start to really get a feel for how much people need and how much people eat. When you do family style, you always want there to be so much more than, because it's going to sit there for a long time. You don't want to sit there in front of empty plates or empty platters. Like it feels like you're not honoring your guests. But when it's on a buffet and things start to get finished, it's like the best feeling. Like people are so happy. They feel like they have permission to not go up and just take more, like it's really a different mindset. And it is hard. I want to acknowledge, like for me, not eating and reading, because that was a habit I had for so young, or eating and watching TV that I had as a child, is really hard to switch. But I use it to my benefit because I always focus on drinking water or having tea or having hot cocoa, or, all the amazing flavors of decaf coffees and dessert teas that they have now, which are really fun, and enhance the experience without consuming a lot of food that I don't need. If I want to be eating, I should be eating. But I have that habit of having something in my mouth while I'm reading or while I'm watching TV. And so it's hard to drink enough water in the day. So by flipping the script there, it makes it actually easier to drink water. And especially clients who are big car eaters, just off topic, like when they switch to drinking water from a straw, like one of these kind of like Starbucks cups that has an easy straw, it's life changing because, or the Stanley cup that has a straw cover, you just start drinking so much more water. You feel better, less headachy. It's good for your hormones. Just across the board, it's better.
The question: what is
Yeah.
better, families style food, or plating for each person? Like, how do people eat better?
It's a good question. It really depends on your guests. And again, you have to make it about the people sitting across from you. There are some people who really are people pleasers. And if you are like, okay, what can I give you? Do you want potatoes? Do you want rice? Like they don't have it in them to say no, even if they actually don't want those foods, they're going to feel uncomfortable. And then there are people who really appreciate not having the food at the table and have everything beautifully plated, and not worry that they're just going to keep eating because it's right in front of them. And so I think you got to know your audience a little bit, and there's no one right way, but there is the way that you see. And I would say really look at your family first and do what works for your family, and then of course look at your guests. But if your kids are so happy to be at the table and it suits their personality and it suits what works for them, of course you have to get them out of their comfort zone to try something new. But once you do and you find out what works best for them, then you're inviting people into this super warm, comforting, happy space. And they'll read the room and adjust.
So like what I've started doing now is when there's a table full of like family style, like there's tons of, it's like first like scan the table and see, because like when there's four different types of fish, it's a lot to choose from. And as much as they all look interesting, and I just don't want to eat so much fish. So like I first scan and see like kind of like what I envision on my plate, and that's all I go for most of the time, some of the time.
So that's actually my best tip. You stole it. Great job. For when you're at a buffet at a hotel. Whenever you're at a hotel, like, some people are going away for Pesach, maybe to, hotels, etc. Walk around the entire, like everything. Look at all the options and eat them with your eyes. Taste them with your eyes. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Now, what do I actually want to consume? Because there's a very big difference between watching Food Network and what you actually want to eat.
Right.
And you can enjoy things with your eyes, be like, ooh, that fish, like, wow, that crust, that looks really good. That looks really good. That looks really good. Even compliment your host. I can't believe you had time to make such variety. Wow. And then go pick the one that's going to be the best fit to actually consume for your body. A bunch of people have problems with challah. A lot of people feel sick after they eat challah, and challah is such a staple of Shabbos. I have clients all the time who don't need to be gluten-free, but there's something about the yeast in today's bread or chalot that they always feel bloated and have a stomach ache after they eat it. And so, but they still want to make challah every week, and they still want to have that Shabbos challah feeling. I reminded them make the bracha. Make sure you make enough to make a bracha. Make it an experience. Smell it. Make sure they're beautiful. And then you have the tiniest bite. And if you want to have a whole slice of bread, go get a bread that doesn't hurt you and eat your bread, because that's good for your consumption, but that's good for your soul, you know? And there's a difference. It's not
I'm,
always the same thing.
I'm wondering if someone knows that the bread is not going to do well by them, or any vegetable or any food, and they're still eating it. I'm just wondering, because like for myself, there's a few things that I know I shouldn't eat. Like I love pasta on my tongue, but I don't like what it does after that, and I still do
Hmm.
it. Like what's going on?
So it's usually three things. Okay. Number one, it's, are you choosing pasta when there's an equally delicious other option? Are you choosing pasta when you get into a situation, nothing else looks as good other than as the pasta? It's like salad or pasta, you know? So that's number one. Number two is, how motivated are you by the discomfort afterwards? Is it something that we have people we love in our life who are also uncomfortable and give us indigestion, and some we tolerate and some we don't, right? Like, you got to know, is this something I'm willing to accept because of my love of pasta? And then I just need to make sure that my portion size is in alignment with how I want to feel. So maybe I always have a taste of pasta, but I don't actually need to consume a whole serving of pasta. Or is it just environmental, right? Like, is it really just a problem of, um, you know, nothing else looks as good? So if I made zoodles with the same exact sauce, like I actually really want the fettuccine sauce, or I really want the marinara sauce and melted cheese, or I really want the pesto and salmon, I don't care that it is or is not over pasta. And then you got to make sure that whenever you make pasta, that you're making the effort to have cauliflower or broccoli or zoodles or spaghetti squash under that amazing, delicious sauce.
That's if I'm the one who's making it. But if I'm going out or I'm going as a guest, I find it much harder to choose like what's so
So if you're a guest, there's differences: a dinner and guest. Guest, if you're going somewhere and like, ask. First of all, it's always good to ask what they're making. If you know it's going to be like a pasta pizza night, you have the choice to bring an amazing eggplant lasagna. Like, you could bring that instead of just bringing a salad or a vegetable plate, right?
right.
And when it comes to going out to eat, so if you're going to go to a dairy place, you got to have other things that you like equally on the menu, or it's just always going to be a temptation. And then maybe you split with two other people and you have the tiniest serving of pasta and you have a bunch of other things as well. If really, like, that's just your thing, then, find that space in your life, as long as it's not actually hurting you. You don't have celiac or something where you're causing yourself damage or it's affecting your quality of life negatively.
Let's go back to Pesach because that's what we're covering. That's what's coming up.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people. I mean, there's the magazines are full of recipes, and people are talking about what they're making, and like the tables seem to be like laden with food, even though some people have very few ingredients. Whatever it is, somehow, even with very few ingredients, the tables are full of food, and it's a wonderful holiday where everyone's just hanging out with each other. But it seems like there's just a lot of eating, a lot of food. And I want to
So,
talk to that a little bit.
yeah. So I think you have to be willing to make a mindset shift and recognize that it's not good. It's not healthy for everyone to be eating all the time. So there are a few different strategies depending on your family culture. Some people have an open, closed kitchen policy. When the kitchen is open, it's abundant. You made two different chickens and two different meats, and someone who loves to cook and like invest should feel free to do that. But then there should be a time when, even though there's leftovers, like, the kitchen is closed, and somebody who needs to cook so much fresh food for every meal and isn't willing to serve leftovers again. I mean, here in Israel, there's a big movement. Israel is the third worst country when it comes to food waste, and we still have
Okay.
hungry Jews. And it's the same thing in America, and the Jewish community is really one of the worst in the world about waste of food. And so you want to find out, is there a food bank you can donate to? Is there maybe a family that, like, you want to cook all this food, but like there are some other families that would just love to have your leftovers, would feed them for 2 weeks. And it would be this amazing things, I know two people who run Pesach programs in America, and they buy everybody's freezers of leftover meat at the end of Pesach in Florida and give it away and let people buy it at cost. Families who otherwise can't afford those cuts of meat the rest of the year, and they put them in their freezer and they have them. So you want
Wow.
to try to, again, like turn that abundance into real spiritual abundance. You're going to feel so much better about it. The other thing is to, Rabbi Wine in his Agada, Rabbi Beryl Wine is one of my favorite Rebbeim. I have his Agada, and he recommends they eat 3 p.m. Erev Leil Seder, a big meal. Okay. And so what we started doing in my house, and I've had many clients and many customers and many friends even who just adopted this over the years. We've been doing this, gosh, like over 10 years now. And we take all the food like for like the Seder meal that doesn't have matzah in it because we don't eat shruya. So most of our stuff is pretty like easy to eat Erev Seder. And at 3 p.m., I serve some of that, all the best stuff, the brisket and the mashed potatoes and all the stuff when everyone's actually hungry at 3 p.m. And then when it comes to the Seder, it goes out on the plaza again and people eat some, but really most people are happy with matzo ball soup or chicken soup. And we do like matzo balls that are like ground turkey that look like matzo balls, whatever it is. And it's such a more enjoyable Seder and people don't go to bed. Like already everybody's struggling with the amount of matzah that they eat at the Seder digestionally. Like no one wants to look at food for like till noon the next day because everyone's still digesting
It's
the
also
Seder
late.
food. It's midnight, but I mean, for us, we never get to Shulchan Aruch before midnight. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, especially if you have a lively conversation, I have 5 children, no matter what their ages were, we don't get to Shulchan Aruch before midnight. So eating that food at 3 p.m. has been life-changing because you work hard on it and now it's really enjoyed. And I'll even
You
ask
can
them,
even
like, what
take
do you want me
pictures
to,
of it.
and you could even take pictures of it. And also, it's just much easier to balance how much you're making and
Right.
then make a nice meal for the next day. It's still Chag. And especially if you're in America and you have 2 Seders, like really pace yourself. I remember there's 8 days of holiday and there should be times where everyone is digesting. And you'll notice that people are always hungry over Pesach, right? People are like, I'm always hungry. I'm always hungry. I'm always hungry. I don't ever feel satisfied. There's no bread. First of all, how much bread is everybody eating during the rest of the year? That like without bread all of a sudden. But actually, it's dehydration from the matzah. For every half square of matzah or a 4th cup of matzah meal, you need a full cup of water.
Oh,
It
wow.
dehydrates you. And so that's why people are always hungry. They're actually really thirsty. And if you actually match your, like if you're going to eat matzah and butter or matzah and cream cheese, first of all, I recommend a high fiber matzah if possible. If not, and you're not using like the natural homemade handmade shmura, otherwise, if you're eating boxed matzah, get high fiber. But make sure you're having a full 8 ounces of water for on top of your 8 to 12 ounces, cups you should be drinking a day for every matzah. And you're just going to change your Passover. First of all, you're not going to have the same digestive issues. You're going to feel better. You're not going to be starving all the time. It's just going to be a game changer.
And that's just plain water.
Just
Not
plain water.
not orange juice or whatever else. Certainly
Nope.
not soda.
Not soda, but seltzer or like herbal tea would be fine. But it's the liquid. Peppermint tea is also really good for digestion. For people who really suffer over Passover, peppermint tea is really good.
So what about the idea of like really kind of planning when you're going to be eating instead of eating all day? Like just kind of
Exactly.
having a good sense of what you're going to be eating. Of course, if someone brings out, you go to someone's house and they bring out this decadent Pesach cake and you want to try it, then like we said in the beginning, you could try that. But have a more of a sense of what you're going to be eating because there's a
And
lot
if
of
you
free
go to
time.
friends and this is the friend who's the baker, maybe you don't serve dessert that day unless you have guests, like, or the dessert's over there and you're saving yourself for that thing that's really worth it, right? But I think putting food completely away between meals makes all the difference. Like, don't leave the bars of chocolate out. Don't leave dessert out for people to nosh all afternoon. When all the kids come to your house, you want to be the cool house. Have the best games. Have the best snacks put away. Take them out. Everybody gets a snack. Put them away again and let them go back to playing. There's those kids who really struggle because they're the ones who everyone else doesn't think about the food anymore. And they're outside playing basketball. And these 1, 2 kids keep circling your kitchen for the next cookie and the next snack and the next thing. And like, it's really not fair to put them in that temptation. It's not good for them. They're missing out on playing basketball because they're one of those kids. They're one of those women. There's one of those men who just food calls them. And we can work on that from a young age just through how we set up our homes to have it be, where nothing is off limits, but there's times that are eating and there are times that are not for eating.
I think that if we know that in the more or less in the morning of what our day will look like, then we can plan that. It's like when our trips don't need to be bags and bags of food, just bags of food. Like not like just know that there's going to be enough food, but not more than enough. Of the kids are starting to scrounge for the potato chips and the whatever the Kutch Pesach biscuit, and that there's just no end.
Exactly. One snack per kid. Like otherwise bring extra fruits and vegetables. Like bring extra fruit. Like bring something healthy. If they're actually hungry, they'll eat the fruit. If they just want the nosh, then they had their nosh already. Move on. Move on with your day. Like it's such a gift for bored children. And I say this as a mom of many ADHD children, to have to learn to entertain themselves outside of eating, and like it's important. It's an important skill also for us. We get out of the habit of playing, of being spontaneous, of being playful, of being joyful. Like I know how many women, myself, have been there as a young mom or different stages. Like the only way we know how to take a rest is to sit down with some food and a magazine or our phone and be scrolling. Like we don't know how else to signal that we're off limits. If we're eating, so we have a legitimate reason to be sitting down. Otherwise, why aren't we cleaning or cooking or folding laundry or doing something else? Like change that paradigm of like, if I'm sitting and relaxing, I'm sitting and relaxing. I don't have to relax with food. Food could be relaxing, but that's not its real purpose. Its purpose is to be consumed.
But I think that also people feel that food is part of being a host, and I'm a better host if I have more food. So if someone comes 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which they just finished eating at 2, and then you start bringing out all the cakes because that's what hosts do. I go back and forth with friends about this. It's like, as a guest, I don't want you to bring it out so that I have to say no, because I just ate an hour and a half ago. So like, I mean, everyone just ate an hour and a half ago. So I understand the host side wanting to bring out the food, but the guest not wanting to eat it. So that was just like,
So
mingling
Israelis
out.
have a great system where they bring out these teeny tiny little bowls, like teeny tiny little bowls, like maybe 2 tablespoons each. And they have some nuts and they have some little chocolate candies and they have like, some little itsy bitsy things. And they put them out and they bring like this big pot of like tea, these glass, pots with their
Right.
tea essence, the tea in them. And they put cups out and they're like, please feel free. And there's little plates. And if you want to take one little almond, you can. But like, there isn't this, no, I have served you. And now you feel this reciprocity. Now I have to eat it. And if you're sitting there and the conversation is good, you're going to end up eating. But when they're little bowls, automatically the assumed portion is 1. There's only 10 in the thing. So now socially, you're like, don't want to take 50 and nobody wants to. And you get the feeling as a host of putting something out. But again, you have to look at the person sitting in front of you and be like, what's gonna make this an amazing experience when people come to my house? The quality of our connection and the quality of our conversation. We only have so much emotional bandwidth. If we're spending that bandwidth in a conversation with ourselves about food, you're not really present with the person you're sitting in front of.
Wow. Say that again. We're spending so much.
You only have so much bandwidth. And if the person sitting in front of you is debating whether or not they're going to eat the chocolate cake, they're not listening to you. They're not connecting with you. We can only have so much going on in our mind at one time. And so their frontal focus is on, I just ate lunch and I have this dress and then this, and I know I'm going to go home and we're going to have this whole meal in 2.5 hours. And,
And that's in their head. Imagine if the half of the conversation is about the food, and I shouldn't eat this, when you could be having some fabulous conversation instead of talking about, I really shouldn't be eating this.
Exactly.
So I think that's great. I'm going to actually look for those really small plates What I love about that is they say in education is like the environment is a third teacher. It kind of tells you what
Yes.
it should be done. So if you're giving small plates, you're saying as a host, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I'm expecting that you're going to be taking small, and that's okay. Not that I'm telling you.
Also, like they're really small. Like they put everything out in small bowls and everything's like finger instead of cake. Even when they serve cake, they put it in like they call them injetting here, like little things, like little circles. And so they're like tiny little pieces. They're tastes, like the size of a mini muffin, in the cake. And like and it's like a few almonds and a few pistachios and a few dates, like very small, and it's like the placeholder. See, I've served you. I have the mitzvah of serving my guests, but like no one's expecting you to eat more than like one or two almonds. Like you don't even have to put it like it's just a nibble, a taste, and you can focus on the conversation.
So small plates and big cups. So
Small
drink a
plates and
lot.
big cups. Also, all my cups at my Shabbos table are all 16 ounces. Because 16 ounces is really the amount of water you want to drink before you eat, and the amount of water you want to, not like chugging, but like in a
Yeah.
period of time before you eat, and also before you want to go for seconds. If you actually pause and drink 16 ounces of water, you're going to have a much better sense. It gives you the right amount of time to feel your own fullness from what you've already eaten. And so 16-ounce cup, not everybody, most people, and including me, don't fill our cup to the top. But
Right.
even if you're drinking 12 ounces or 14 ounces, it makes a big difference as well. And having a nice tea variety, people always really appreciate it. I have teenage girls and their friends come over, and they love to go into the tea drawer and like find all the cool teas as well. And even when my kids serve candy or treats, I got really beautiful glass containers for them that are small. They're small and they're thin. When you go in, you can't like, there's no handful. There's like one or two. It's just the way the containers are designed. And so again, you're putting out maybe some Hershey Kisses and some gummies and something else and some fruits and vegetables, but like the fruits and vegetables are like you could take a handful and the gummies and the chocolates are like, oh, right, I'm taking
You got
I'm
to take with
taking
the
one at a time.
tongs.
Exactly, like, oh, I'm taking one at a time. And it just makes all the difference. I have a friend who serves popcorn with tongs. She has like a little mini tong set for popcorn. So when people take popcorn, they don't have to stick their hand in. And she serves like these little cups that are really like maybe, like ice cream size, like a half cup. I can't tell you how nice it is. Popcorn for me, I can easily eat 3, 4 cups of popcorn, right? Like sitting at a table. But when
Right.
there's a little cup in front of me, I just fill my little cup with popcorn. It's so nice.
I think
It
that each time we're filling it is reminding us, do we really want it? So if you get like a big one of those big ones, like for the movie theaters, then that's how much you're gonna eat. But if you get a small one, every time you fill it, it's like, should I be filling this? Do I really?
and it reminds you to eat, like make it last, especially if you don't want to be eating it, but you want to feel part of everything, like you want to be experientially eating, but not really eating. So taking some, but having one or two and enjoying the experience without feeling like, oh, I'm signaling to everybody I'm on a diet, like whatever. So people are very self-conscious, that they're making a change. They don't want everyone to judge, and maybe especially if you don't see outside results yet. Some people, I've had clients very sensitive until they really feel like they've dropped a certain amount of weight. They feel very sensitive at, even asking what is somebody making, like that people are going to be judging them, that they're on a diet, but they don't look like they've succeeded yet. Um, and this is where that spiritual element comes in. And going back to every week in my community, we learn something. It's a free class for anybody who wants. We just finished Shar Bitachon, and now we're doing Misiosi Sharim, Lights Along the Way. And we just talk about how all of these great Musar Svarim, Bitachon Svarim, talk about the body and talk about how you eat and talk about your relationship with food, your relationship with other people, and your relationship with money, and your relationship with God. And they're all connected. And
I love how you
so
bring
you
that
can't
spiritual
ignore it.
piece in. Because I think it's a part of the wholeness of who we are. Food is a big part because that's how we sustain our bodies and ourselves. And without eating, we do get that brain fog and we do get that loss of cognition. But there's the right amount of eating. And I think that all of that, the connection of who we are with the food and with the environment, I think it's such an important piece for me, that would resonate with me as far as like how to really make eating be an experience and being a part of who I am rather than just eating for eating's sake or eating for boredom's sake. So I love that. I think it's the
And I
richness
think
of
it's very helpful. So many of us have divided how we eat our diet from the rest of our Jewish life. It's not a meat I work on. It's not, something I work on as part of who I am as a person, patience and, self-respect and self-care and balance. Those are all midot that we have to work on. Being quick to anger is the same thing as being quick to cravings. How do I manage being quick to anger? Is the same way I manage being quick to cravings. You ground in your body. You ask yourself, what else am I feeling right now? And you allow that thing to be there, and then you act in your values. It's exactly the same behaviors. And that's why food is so built into our Jewish spiritual life. And so by separating it and say, well, I'm on this diet all the time, we miss out on really the lessons of why this is a taiva in the first place. Because there's character traits that we can refine through enjoying really good food and living in a healthy body.
like patience, waiting for that food to actually cool down, like
right?
And delayed gratification altogether. Like there's so much. I love that whole idea.
Preparation, thoughtfulness, empathy, compassion for yourself and for other people, thinking about the other person, what really is going to make them happy versus what speaks to my ego, right? Am I putting out food that serves my audience, or am I putting out food that makes everybody say, look what she made?
Right. And that's a powerful punch for some people. When I was in Israel and I was like working with the eggplant 5 hours, helping the farmers and all, I'll never eat an eggplant again in the same way, how much effort. So I think that going back, like really appreciating the food that we are having is a spiritual experience too. I can't eat an eggplant again in the same way because it takes so much effort. It's amazing. I think that everyone should have their few hours of farming.
100%. It's really life-changing, and to feel the divine plan, providence that had to bring that produce to you on your Passover table. Like, how many hands and did that have to go through in shipping lanes and people's businesses to like get to you, the consumer? It's really miraculous.
And I think that like I did that once with the children, and it was like that whole how many people, like you say, and how Hashem helped that exact eggplant or that apple get to our table, and Hashem wanted us to have that apple. Now, what are we going to do with this apple? And we're not just going to throw it out because it took a bite and we don't want it.
Exactly.
But then the other hand, I could have cut it into slices, and so that the kids will get just as much as they want, not have the whole apple and then have to eat it. So I think that this whole idea of really what you help me think is like really slowing down the whole idea of the food part of Pesach. Well, there's so many other aspects as well, but really slowing down the food and like really thinking of it as not just I have to feed the people or I have to entertain the people, but who are the people and when are the people? Like when are they coming and what is going to be happening? What is the environment and how to set it up so that there's, I don't want to call it portion control in a bad way, but helping people make better choices. I love that whole idea of the environment being a big part of how to help people make their choices.
100%, without lecturing or being, preachy or anything, or without judging. Like, it's there's a great story. Yesterday I heard about this man who would fill up everybody's teacup with only half a cup of tea every time they came to his house. And when he was leaving and the son was gonna take over pouring the tea, he said, make sure you give anybody half a cup of tea. And he's like, it makes you look so stingy. Why do you do that? He's like, because there are two people whose hands shake. And I can't give everybody, I can't just give them a half a cup.
Oh, wow.
And so I give everybody a half a cup so that they're not embarrassed and spill tea. So yeah, sometimes maybe we're doing a little extra portion control in the environment for that one kid in your house who's struggling. So what?
I love that it's a little on Pesach. There's a lot of things to think about, and here's one more thing to think about. But I think this one's an important one, and because it actually ties over Pesach also, not only in our clothing, but it becomes a habit, or at least a mindset, or at least something to be thinking about. I think Pesach is a good time as any to really start.
I'll give you one last one about Pesach specifically. One of my good friends, Rebbetzin Yael Trush, gives a great example around money. And she says, sometimes we get exactly what we need, right? We just get exactly what we need, but we get it in a kosher way, and we get it in a beautiful way, and it really comes. And you look around and you see other people who look like they're bad people getting lots and lots of money. And she says, it's like you're in the king's palace, eating at the king's table. And you know how it is in the nicest, fanciest restaurants? There's portion control. Those people care about how they look, and they're not leaving that restaurant in their, expensive shoes and expensive clothes and expensive cars, like feeling like, huge. The portions are tiny. It's like when you're in the king's palace, the portions are always specific and small, but they're gorgeous and the best quality food. The people who eat in the trash outside, they get all the leftovers. Oh, there's as much as you want out there. You want
Right.
to eat from the, I'm sure it's even delicious. It's the best quality food, but now it's in the trash. Like we can think, like sometimes when we're setting our table and we're thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to make my cake smaller size because I'm not having as many people. I don't need to make a cake that I would feed 30 people for the 10 people I have coming. Maybe I need to get a smaller cake pan. I make half the portion of cake. Okay, but I'm making the cake for the highest quality people with the most beautiful thing that's a good fit.
I love that. I think that again, what I'm doing is going to really be thinking about who's coming and how to make it portion controlled, but not in like a heavy-handed way, in a way that just feels right. It's like I'm not going to do this, but our thought was put each brownie in a plastic bag in itself, so that it's its own, like sort of like Shalach style. I'm not going to do that, but that idea.
Israelis do that. They use the cupcake liners, and they put each piece of cake in a cupcake liner, and they fill the platter, but it's very clear what a portion size is, and it's not judgmental. Some people will take 2 or 3. That's on them. Like, that's not my business. Enjoy your cake. I'm not judging you. I want my kids to know just what a portion is. If you're going to overeat, you're going to overeat. But like, I also don't have to put enough out for every single person to have 3 pieces of cake.
Right. Right. And hopefully someone will come back again, not because we want to be stingy about it, but not everyone needs to be eating that. Again,
Exactly.
I'm not judging, just for that.
You're definitely going to put out extra so that people who want seconds take, or thirds even. But there doesn't, when you're making your count, like assume a third of the people are going to take seconds and thirds. Like, you don't have to assume that every single person needs every single dish that you're making. Like, I need to make enough chicken and meatballs and the second chicken and the fish of each kind of fish, like you said, so that there's enough for every person to have every kind of fish.
Right.
It's something to think about, that it's really the way a king would approach it. It's really a much more elevated, enlightened, it's not about being scarce. It's not about trying to stop people from eating. It's about setting the table in a way that's appropriate for the amount of people you're serving.
I love it. For me, it's a major mind shift. And so I have to go back to the shopping lists and adjust some things, because this is very helpful. So tell me a little bit more about your program that you're starting now and the ones.
So I have an amazing giveaway for everybody who listens to this. I'm going to give it to you. I have an amazing Passover cookbook. It is not Chabad friendly in that, like, Chabad has a totally different kind of laws around their eating on Pesach. But I do have, for anybody who wants, you can be in touch with me. I have a special list of Chabad friendly recipes that are only peelable vegetables and just salt and like special things that they use. But for everybody else, and for also all the tips and content that's in the Passover cookbook, it'll be super helpful if you're going away, going to in-laws, or hosting. It's really great. But right after Pesach, I'm launching my Shabbat, Thrive Well Shabbat Blueprint. And what it is about thriving well on Shabbat, and that the way you actually go through Shabbat is a blueprint for a healthy relationship with food. You have these transitions of Kiddush and Havdalah, and you have all these different times when you could be eating on Shabbat, and you have when you wake up and when you go to sleep, and you have the morning, and you have Kiddush, and you have simchas, and we go through everything. We go through how to prep, how to look at your week in terms of Shabbat. All the great sages looked at how they food shopped for the whole week in terms of Shabbos. So we do that. We look at how do you eat for the week? How do you eat on Shabbos? What are your organizational elements? Are you a people pleaser? We talk about, how to cope with overdoing and underdoing and resentment, which get in the way of enjoyment. We talk about emotional eating, and how to conquer that, especially because Shabbat is a place where you have the family and lots of emotions and social dynamics. So it's really a great program. It's 12 weeks. This time I have a bonus 2 weeks. And for anybody who signs up before Pesach, they are going to get 2 one-on-one coaching sessions, one for before and one for after Pesach, to personally help create, a personalized Passover plan to make sure that after Pesach, when we start, they're already feeling successful.
And Lily, you're so easy to talk to. So
Yep.
I just think that everyone can really benefit. So thank you and have a wonderful Pesach. Oh, and where can people reach you? What's your website?
So they can, lilyaronin.com. You can be in touch with me there, and you'll give them my contact information to get the cookbook, and they will get that in their email, and then
That'll
they'll
be in
be
the
on
show
my
notes.
list.
That'll be in the show notes. I'll put in the email. So thank you so much, Lily. I'm really excited to see the cookbook.
Me too. And thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to your community and you.
Thanks. Thank you for joining me in another fascinating conversation about midlife. If you'd like to reach me, Devora Kresniansky, to talk about your midlife or anything else, you can reach me at jewishmidlife@gmail.com. You can also find us on our website, jewishmidlife.com, and follow us on Jewish Midlife on Instagram or Facebook, and join our conversations in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. And share what we're doing with your friends and others in the midlife phase.